People do not practice what they preach. This to me is a basic trait that people must have. If you want to preach something, you must practice it. In other words, practice what you preach. So many people out there will literally give you writing advice for years and years and years, and then they will publish a book. And the books will be terrible. They will have awful structure. They will have terrible characters that are awfully executed. And so many people out there do not practice what they preach. Brandon Sanderson is someone who gives writing advice on his platform. And this means he has a lot of catalog out there of what he believes. So does he practice what he preaches? Let's examine that. Let's actually not analyze the world and everyone, but let's analyze just Caledon. I believe Brandon Sanderson released a video in February talking about the fundamentals and the foundations of storytelling. In that particular video, he lays out the following.
I've said before, I think of these three things as the three pillars of storytelling. We've got plot, setting, character.
The plot is what is happening, the character is who is it happening to, and the setting is where is it happening. This is very simple. Then he says the following.
And there's really this all-important thing in the middle of it, conflict. And conflict is what glues these things together.
Boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
So let's analyze how well Brandon Sanderson, achieves what he preaches. So the plot of Caledon, we are taking only Caledon, no Odium, none of the desolations, not the war between the Alethi and the Barshendi. Actually, we are only analyzing just Caledon. His plot is actually revolving around climbing back the social ladder, because in the beginning of the story, Caledon is at the top of the social hierarchy. He is very well respected, and he is Caledon the Storm Blessed because he's very lucky. And then he drops down and becomes a slave. And we are introduced to him again in a wagon. Where is it happening? Well, it's happening in the Shattered Plains. When he's taken there, he becomes a bridgeman. And he is practically going to die soon. The place where he's at, the Shattered Plains, is awful, and there's war happening, and what he has become, Bridgeman, is very disposable. Let's move to the character. What does Caledon believe? Caledon believes I'll protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is why actually he joins Amram's army.
And there's really this all-important thing in the middle of it, conflict. And conflict is what glues these things together.
What is the conflict? The conflict in the first book for the protagonist Caledon is actually to protect Bridge 4. How does that link everything together? Well, the character, his principle is to protect them because they're innocent, they are harmed, and they cannot protect themselves. This is why he takes it upon himself to protect Bridge 4. A lot of them have given up on life, and they are basically expendable, and they have accepted their death. And the plot is climb the social ladder. By protecting Bridge 4, Caledon actually climbs the social ladder, okay? He becomes a House Holin's personal Kingsguard. And then let's talk about the setting. It connects to the setting. Why? Because Sadius, all of these people, the army, the war, the Shattered Plains, the environment that is extremely awful, makes it very difficult for Caledon to protect Bridge 4. And that is how the conflict in this particular novel, in The Way of Kings, for Caledon actually links everything up nicely. In fact, too nicely. In fact, it's too perfect. It's almost as if Brandon practices what he preaches. Yes, in fact, the answer to the question is yes. Brandon Sanderson does practice what he preaches, and he is one of those authors that actually does this, not on just one scale, he does it almost everywhere. If he tells you something, if Brandon Sanderson tells you this is what I believe a good story is, he will practice it. And you will see this if you analyze his novels. In fact, he does this with his magic systems, where he has 3 laws, and his laws are fully applied to every one of his magic systems. That is a trait. If you have, to me, you are a great person, because it means you have integrity. You are not lying. It means that you are not trying to say something popular just for likes, and that you are, basically saying what you believe and what you practice day to day. And Brandon Sanderson with this particular statement, which is, plot, character, setting, and the conflict that links all of them together nicely, he practiced it with Kaladin. We can do this with Dalinar. We can do this with Shallan. In fact, I have done them in my script, but I think you get the point. Hey, Ahmed here. I do two things. I analyze books and I review books. And here's something for you, okay? People do not practice what they preach. A lot of the time, people will tell you stuff, right? They will tell you, do this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And most of the time, they themselves do not practice what they preach. For instance, let's talk about writing books. A lot of people out there will tell you how to write good books, and they will give you good advice. One of those people is Brandon Sanderson, the author of Stormlight Archive, the Mistborn books, as well as, Elantris, and many other. Basically, Brandon Sanderson, all right? Let's not delve into, who he is. We know Brandon Sanderson, okay? And so he is one of those people that will give you writing advice. But unlike most 99% of people out there, he is one of the few tiny minority that actually practice what they preach. And this is very crucial to me, because if you say something, you yourself should showcase the quality that you are preaching. So for instance, Brandon Sanderson gives people a lot of writing advice. Last time, I actually talked about one of the writing advices that he gives, how he connects plot, setting, character, using conflict, and I explained that in depth. This time, let's actually talk about Brandon Sanderson's character, because I really appreciate wholeheartedly the reality that this guy does not, mess around. And if he says something, he does it. But don't forget, I analyze books in this channel, and this is a discussion. If you want me to analyze your favorite book, drop it down in the comments. Even if I hadn't read it, I will give it a shot and add it to my to-be-read list. Let's talk about his characters, because Brandon Sanderson is one of those fantasy authors that a lot of people out there will say he's not a great character writer. But he is actually a very good character writer when it comes to writing characters that you can find, yourself in, right? So for instance, a lot of the times with Brandon Sanderson characters, you will find yourself rooting for them. When people say Brandon Sanderson is not a good character writer, what they are talking about is, he does not write extensive, drastic flaws into his characters. Most of the time, his characters are flat characters. There is nothing wrong with that. And I'm going to showcase to you why there is nothing wrong with that. First of all, take a look at this.
It became, over the course of my career, a mantra to me, which was mentioned in here, that the character needs to live beyond the page. Specifically for me, I find that a character is more powerful if they have passions and motivations beyond the main plot.
A lot of people out there, when they talk about genius, they often think genius is a trick, but genius is actually, in terms of Brandon Sanderson, it is doing the simple things correctly. And so what makes Brandon Sanderson a genius in my eyes is the fact that he does the simple things correctly. There is no trick to him. Brandon Sanderson doesn't do tricks. Let's talk about this particular bit here where he says character must live beyond the page, and number two, character must live beyond the plot. In The Way of Kings, which is what we will use here, there is three main protagonists, Kaladin, Dalinar, and Shallan. Let's talk about just Kaladin, okay? First of all, Kaladin lives beyond the page. And the way Kaladin lives beyond the page is because he struggles with depression. And in this particular sense, it's really not half-assed. If there is a depiction of depression I have seen in fantasy, Brandon Sanderson does it the best with Kaladin. And in that particular case, Kaladin lives outside of the page. In other words, he's a human, and he's not just a character that is occupying a role, okay? He is more than a role. He is an active, human who has proactive goals. And let's talk about the second thing he said, which is, the character must live beyond the plot.
This is another problem you'll run into. It is a major problem. You can see it most powerfully sometimes in superhero films. Because they tend to follow a very specific cycle, and they have a certain trope to them. In a lot of these, the hero would do nothing if there weren't a villain doing interesting things, interrupting their life.
In The Way of Kings, there's a major plot, a global plot happening. There are two actually global plots happening, which is, the first one is the war between the Alethi and the Parshendi, and the other one is actually the Desolations, the Odium, the Voidbringers, and the Knights Radiant. And those are two major plots. But we know that Kaladin, if you read the book, you will see that Kaladin actually doesn't have a lot to do with those, and he has active goals. He has a lot to do with actually the war between the Alethi and the Barshendi, but his goal, his objective, his plot within the Way of Kings is actually not to win the war against the Barshendi. That's his goal, is to not win the war against the Barshendi or to sabotage the Alethi nobility, but it is actually to protect Bridge 4, and he gives himself this plot. And so he has proactive tasks to achieve. And so with Kaladin, Brandon Sanderson achieves both things, where he achieves the first thing that he says, and then he achieves the second thing that he says. In other words, a character must live outside of the page, and a character must be independent of the major plot that is happening. And this is a man who practices what he preaches, and he preaches what he practices. Actually, yeah, now that's much better than one way, right? It goes both ways. This is why I really love this guy. And it's not a trick. Brandon Sanderson is not pulling off a trick here. This is not mysterious. People know this. People advise this. The only thing that makes Brandon Sanderson special is the fact that he will practice what he preaches, and he will preach what he practices. So a protagonist must be proactive.
This runs you into a problem that you somehow need to make your character proactive.
This is amazing, and the reason why it's amazing is because he does it with Kaladin, right? Of course, Kaladin is proactive, but we can actually explain this in with other characters like Shallan, right? So Shallan, there's, of course, as we have established before, there's major plots going on, right? And so the character does their own thing, and they are proactive. And Shallan is very proactive because she wants to become the ward of Jasna.
We are attracted as readers to characters who are proactive and who have a passion and who are doing things. All right. We are also attracted to characters who are capable.
I don't think I have to explain this one. By the way, it's raining. I don't think I have to explain this one because every one of Brandon Sanderson's protagonists is capable. Basically, we have Serene, we have Reoden from Elantris, Vin, all of these characters from his books like Shallan, Kaladin, Dalinar, all of them are proactive protagonists who are doing their own thing, but on top of that, they are all capable. But then he also says the following about what makes a good character.
Sympathetic characters usually are also flawed.
So the way Brandon Sanderson perceives a flaw is the flaw makes us sympathize with the character. As a writer, I actually perceive this in the complete opposite way, where I think a flaw should be something that hinders, like a gaping hole within the character's own morality or something like that, which dictates every one of the choices. However, this particular way that Brandon Sanderson looks at flaws is still very good because it means, again, it gets us to sympathize with the character. And this particular reasoning is very evident in his books, in most of his characters, where his characters have these tiny flaws that actually make you sympathize with them. And in the case of actually Kaladin and depression, that's a major, huge flaw that will actually be crippling anyone who falls into an episode, which Dalinar falls into in the beginning of the story. And that is why I really love Brandon Sanderson. At the end of the day, he does not tell you something that he does not preach. In other words, he practices what he preaches and he preaches what he practices. And that to me is one of the greatest qualities anyone can have out there. If you have any book recommendations, drop it down in the comments, because what I do with this channel is I analyze books. Okay, like what I did right now, I analyze books and I also review books. So if you want me to analyze your favorite book or you want me to review your favorite book, you can drop that down in the comment section. I'll be having a great fun with it, actually. Even if I haven't read it, I will add it to my to be read list, right? So I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope that you enjoyed the discussion. Tell me what you think of Brandon Sanderson in the comment section. Have a nice day.